Hello, good day. Let's start this new lesson for Unreal Engine 5.7.2.
Okay, in this video, I will show you how to create a rotating object that can hit you. Now, I did supply this already. This will just be another one. So the first thing I'll do, I already have the prop. So I'll import it. I'll import the mesh. So go to mesh, static mesh, make sure, click import mesh, import. Okay, so surprisingly, the mesh has imported and the mesh imported with the material. Now, this is Unreal Engine 5.7.4. So this updated today, but I mean, that's very good because usually when you import, once you import anything into Unreal, you usually have to connect the material afterwards. But here it is now. So this mesh has imported and imported with the material connected. So that's very good. Okay, so I don't need to do anything to this. So I just move the mesh into this folder here. So I'll come out, I'll right click, select blueprint class, select actor, call this BP, hit actor, double click to open. So we're in here, we're in the blueprint. Go to components, click add. You're going to choose the static mesh. You will just name this mesh, hit actor, mesh. So the mesh is selected. We need to find that static mesh. So that's this mesh here. So you have it selected. Click here to appear. So that's the mesh right there. You click compile, save. So then we go to here, add, type in rotating. So I have the rotating movement. You can give this a name, but I'm not going to give this a name. I'm going to just use this name. Compile, save. You know what? I could drag this into the page. Press play. And we can see, just like that alone, the object is rotating. I just put in the rotating movement component on this actor right here. So if we go to this rotating object, you see we can hit the pilot, we can push back, but at the same time, it's kind of interfering with the camera. So remember we did supply this before in one of the earlier videos, so we could fix that problem. So all we need to do, go back to the blueprint, go to the mesh, go for collision. I need to change the camera to overlap. So in the collision presets, change this to custom. And then for the camera, we move from block to overlap. Press compile, save. This is a simple problem. I mean, thank God I've done this before, so I know how to fix this. So we go in here, add capsule collision. The reason why we choose a capsule is because we want this. Well, it kind of resemble this head object shape. So tie this up. E. Rotate like this. And press R. Okay, so you have the hit actor mesh and you have the capsule. We want to make the capsule collision a child of the hit actor mesh, so we'll just bring this down. Okay. So now that we have this selected, we need to create an event for the overlap. It will be similar to the examples that we used before. So click this on component begin overlap. So just like previous examples, we need to cast the third-person character. So you go to here and cast, press compile. So we now need to go, press save. We now need to go to the third-person character and create a custom event. So I just will zoom out. You see the blueprint is getting very confusing, eh? All these different events, all these different things are creating. Nevertheless, I'll just go up here and create a custom event. So right click. I just given this a random name, hit player event. So now that we created this event, you'll compile, you'll save, then we'll go back to this blueprint and we'll call that event. The event name was what? Hit player event. Hit player event. So you call that event, compile. Now, right now, the event is empty. So yes, we call an event, but to determine what the event has and what the event will do, we need to go inside here and we need to put something inside the event right here. So here, press input, choose vector. We'll call this hit location. Compile and save. And now you can see that we call an event, the event is here, and we now see the parameter that we created. We see that it is appearing here. This is like, let's say, almost like a location. It has an X, Y, and a Z parameter. Back to the viewport. Add an arrow. We want this arrow because this arrow will give us a direction so that when the character gets hit, it will show us the direction we want the character to be thrown. So we'll go back to the event graph. Hold the arrow here. We'll get a forward vector. And we'll send this inside here. Compile. So we go back to the two-person character. You get the mesh. So let's verify that's the mesh of the character. Back to event graph. Get the mesh here. You will set simulate physics. Like this will be true. Connect this. Press Q, and I have this thing properly aligned. Select the mesh, press Ctrl D, duplicate the mesh. You can just take the mesh and drag it across here, but I choose to just duplicate the mesh. And then you'll just add impulse. So we want to add like a push. So that's why we add in the impulse. You connect this. So you drag from here and you make a vector. Vector. Essentially what this is doing is splitting these values into the X, Y, and Z. You do the same thing here. Type break vector. Press Alt, I'll break this temporarily. I'll pull off here and I'll create a multiply. Multiply. I want to break this to a float, so upgrade this to a float. Let's put 50. Make sure to connect this. Make sure to connect this. We want to make this character move on the X and the Y axis. We could connect this too, but we don't want the character to move on the Z axis. Let's make this about 1,000. Press compile. Save. I think we need to go to the viewport. Select the mesh. Look for the collisions. You could choose custom, but let's just choose physics actor. Compile. Back to the event graph. Create a variable is knocked out. Get. Press B, left click. So we'll create a branch. This will be a condition. Is knocked out. Set. So what we'll do, press Alt and break this. Connect this. It's getting kind of confusing. Connect this like this. So you'll create a delay. Let's delay be maybe about 2 seconds. Select this. Select this. Control D. This across here. And we'll undo this so it won't select this. Basically, what we're saying is that after a delay, we'll undo the previous effect here. That's why this is no longer ticked. I want to adjust this maybe to about 500. File. Let's Control D to duplicate the mesh. Touch component. The polycapsule component. Drag this into the parent. Compile. I need to put all these things here to snap the target. We'll drag back across the mesh. Set rotation. Go to the viewport. Look at the mesh, get the properties. So the rotation Z is going to be 270. D is going to be 270. Connect this here. Compile. Need to press Control D. Need to also set relative location. Connect this. I think this is supposed to be minus 89, but just verify. Select the mesh, go to the viewport, location minus 89. Wave the event graph minus 89. Compile. This should have a disabled controller. Character movement. I'll bring this character movement here. Disable movement. Press Alt, break this. Run this here. Run this here. Control D. Delete. Set movement mode. Connect this from none to walking. Last thing is set. Set is knocked out. We will not have anything ticked here, so this will be false. So let's just see if we could rearrange this. So let's explain this. So we created this blueprint. This blueprint here was a mesh. This was the static mesh we created. We created a collision object. This collision object. We created a rotating movement. We could go to the rotating movement here. We could adjust the rotating rate, but we're not really going to play with this. We create an arrow because the arrow will be used for a direction for the hit. We went to the event graph. So when we had the capsule collision selected, we scroll down. We went to the event. We clicked this on component begin hit. Then we went to the event. This sent us to the event graph. So that's this event. We must cast the third-person character because we want this third-person character to be affected by this event. We went to the blueprint for the third-person character, and we created an event. At first, the event was empty. It had nothing in the event. So we just created this event. We compiled and we saved it. And when we compiled and saved it, we went here and then created an input. The input was a vector. Why is a vector? Because the vector have 3 different parameters. That's the different parameters here. Gonna pull all these parameters here. The hit location, there was these parameters here. So you see hit location, this is the hit location, this is the parameters there. So after we created that, we had this parameter here. We made reference to the arrow. That was the arrow from this report here. Go back to the event graph. We bring the arrow here. We created a forward vector. The forward vector is getting the information from the arrow and it's going to hit location right here. Then we went into the third-person character and we created the event. So we created a branch and we created a variable. are we knocked out? If we are knocked out, if it's set to true, so if it's false, we set it's knocked out, it's set to false, we then simulate some kind of physics. Now we need to simulate physics. I need to simulate physics on the mesh. This is the mesh of our character. Remember, this is the blueprint for our third-person character. So we're simulating physics on this mesh, and the physics you want to simulate is the impulse. It will be affected by this mesh. So you can plug the same mesh here, and you can plug the same mesh here, but I just do it separately. The impulse, the force that will be used, you split this into a vector, and we wanted it to affect the x and the y. So this was the hit location. The hit location, we put a multiply here, and we break the vector into x and a y. We went into here. So essentially, we could have connected this into here, but rather than connect this directly into here, we just wanted to split this into a x and y. We just wanted to be affected by the x and the y parameters, not the x, y, and the z parameters. And we just put a multiply force, a multiply node here to multiply or to control the force that it will be hit by. After we have been hit by the force, we disable the movement of the character, and then there's a delay. I put the delay for 2 seconds, but you could always change the delay. When we are disabling the movement, this will be the character movement will be affected. So what we did, we drag the character movement first, and then we disable the movement. So after we disable the movement, there was a delay for 2 seconds, and then we're trying to reset the simulate physics. So we're trying to undo all the things we do previously. So we previously simulated physics. So we want to undo this, and then we need to attach component to component. Why? Because we need to now reattach the mesh back to the capsule component. So the target will be the mesh, because we want to reattach the mesh, and we want to reattach the mesh to the capsule component, and the reason why the capsule component is here. Well, we don't need to put anything for the socket, just need to make sure for the location rule, the rotation rule, and the scale rule is snapped to target for all three. Then we need to reset the relative rotation. So what we did, we drag the mesh across, and when you have the mesh selected, we then reset the relative rotation. We did the same thing, we drag the mesh across, and then we set the relative location. We will reset this to get what relative rotation and relative location to use. We went back here. So we have this selected here. We went back in the viewport. We went in the mesh. We look at the values. This was the default values for the relative location, -89, and for the relative rotation, it was 270. So these are the parameters you want to use. Go back to the event graph. So that's the values you plugged in here. Then we will set back the movement rule. So we bring back the character movement. We bring the character movement, and we want to enable the character movement. So when we enable the character movement, we will set the character, reset the movement mode, and we set it back to walking. And then we brought back this variable here, is knocked out, and we set it here, and we didn't have any value checked in this box here, so it's really set to false. So this, by setting this as false, this allowed the whole thing to occur all over again. In other words, we are not knocked out. So now if the spinning object hits us again, we can be knocked out. After we do all these things, we press compile, then we press save, then we minimize and press play. And we can be knocked out by the spinning object. See, we put catapult. Now we're just resetting by just 2 seconds. You can make a longer delay if you want. So this can be an object that can knock you out, And after you get knocked out, you get respawn in the area where you just got knocked out.
That is it for this lecture. Do you want to learn more? Like and subscribe. You can also contact us, Impulse Response Enterprises Ltd.